I worked as a hospice nurse for almost 3 years. The majority of my patients that I had were COPD patients, and they were patients who smoked all their lives practically, and they were told when they were diagnosed, if they didn't quit smoking, it would advance and it would get to the point where they could not breathe. And I watched these patients of mine struggling and gasping for every breath, constantly tethered to oxygen, couldn't even take a shower because they were so short of breath, had to have somebody help them. Now, you would think, as a nurse, I would look at that and say, oh, I'm a smoker and this is going to be me. But somewhere in the mind, the addicted mind, it says, that's not going to happen to you. I started at 15 because I wanted to be cool, just like a lot of teenagers. I had some older neighbor girls that smoked, and I thought they were awesome, and so I wanted to be like them. And next thing you know, it's a 35-year habit. Both of my parents smoked, and I think in some ways, I'm not blaming them, but I'm saying in some ways I think that affected my thinking about smoking. They do it, and it's okay. Of course, back then it was okay. I mean, nobody knew how bad it was, and it was very socially acceptable. But I wonder if they hadn't smoked, if I would have found it so easy to do, Ultimately, it was my decision. Probably about 5 months ago now, I was diagnosed with mild COPD. COPD is lung disease, and a lot of people can relate to the term emphysema. It is in that group of illnesses. And basically what it is irreparable damage to the lungs. Quitting smoking now is not going to repair my lungs. It will keep me from getting to the point where I can't breathe anymore, but it won't repair them. 35 years of smoking has done that. I have been attending the smoking cessation program here at Tamarack that's actually put on by Spectrum. And Sally Wagner has been my coach. I had tried in the past to quit, very unsuccessfully, because I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan in place for what was I going to do instead of smoke. What was I going to do? I mean, you can't just sit there and say, well, I'm just not going to smoke. I mean, I suppose there are people with that kind of willpower. That is not me. And not most people. So Sally really helped me with that in the class, because developing that plan is so important. The first week they call Hell Week, and there's reason for that. It's hell. It's so hard because that first week, for me, and I've talked to a lot of people who have the same experience, all I could think about was smoking. All I wanted to do was smoke. That there are ways to cope with that, and the biggest one for me was distraction. If I would get up and I would get busy and I would do something, it would keep my mind occupied, it would keep my hands occupied, and I wasn't thinking about smoking. And so I can't tell you how many times I organized and cleaned out my closets and my cupboards, and every room of my house was basically so clean and neat you couldn't stand it. What the class did for me is it helped me stay on track, and Sally would help me tweak my plan a little bit if I was really struggling with one thing versus another thing. She just didn't give up. When I was smoking, I was just tired constantly, fatigued, and little energy, and I have a lot more energy now. And I think the exercise is part to do with that, but I wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for the not smoking. And I like not smelling like smoke, and I like my mouth not tasting like smoke all the time, and my house doesn't smell like smoke. Once I quit, I actually started coming here to Tamarack, and I started exercising. And at first I was so short of breath, I walked the track, and I could make it half a mile, and then I'd have to stop. But I noticed that the more I kept doing this, the better I got. I just can't emphasize enough how it is possible to do it. I mean, I've been smoking for 35 years. Every day, pack a day or more, sometimes. And, if I can make these changes, then, it's really possible for anyone.